I'm going to start by just welcoming all of you guys to Tung Yu, Sawadee Kap. Welcome, good morning to everyone. Nice to see you all here this morning, as well as those of you guys online. Welcome to everyone. This is our group learning program where each Sunday I go chapter by chapter in this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. Today we're in chapter 5, where you're going to learn the Eightfold Path. We're going to be starting with meditation, but then after meditation, we're going to be learning the Eightfold Path, using the words of the Buddha. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha. If you're interested in experiencing the results of the path to enlightenment, which is enlightenment itself, you would need to know the Eightfold Path, inside and out, backwards and forwards. You wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment. You surely need meditation, and that's why we start with meditation. But there's other teachings you need besides meditation in order to get to enlightenment. So I'm going to start with meditation this morning, and then afterwards we'll move into learning the Eightfold Path. So welcome to those of you guys that are here. Welcome to everyone online as we go. You're welcome to ask any and all questions that you like. The way that we start with meditation is I ease into the meditation with chanting, and you're welcome to chant along if you like. I have chanting sheets over here on the table. There's a laminated sheet that shows you the chants that we use. These are the Pali chants. The original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language, so we chant in the Pali language. These chants, there's nothing mystical or magical about them. They're not a rite or ritual or a ceremony or worship or anything like that. Instead, during the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory because everything he taught was oral. So they needed to chant and recite the teachings every 2 weeks in order to get them the memory to be able to remember the teachings so that they could then practice the teachings. They didn't have books and YouTube and podcasts and audiobooks and things like this during the lifetime of the Buddha. So they needed to use chanting. Nowadays, we chant in order to ease the mind into meditation. We don't need to memorize the teachings through chanting. We have books and audiobooks and all these other devices to be able to know the teachings and preserve the teachings. But I still chant because it helps to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So if you would like to chant along, you're welcome to. And on those chanting sheets, it has the English translations as well. And what you're going to see is a lot of admiration and gratitude and appreciation and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I suspect that the Buddha didn't actually create these chants himself. They were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death, because a Buddha wouldn't walk around teaching his students to chant to him, because a Buddha would have eliminated the ego and they wouldn't be putting themselves up above other people. They would just look at themselves as being equal with everybody, that being the same. So these chants were probably created by his students or, either during his life or after his death, because what he did is he taught people how to get to this enlightened mental state. The enlightened mental state is where the mind's peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You no longer experience any discontent feelings. You can eliminate all the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, boredom, loneliness, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these discontent feelings and others can be eliminated from the mind. You just need the wisdom of how to train your mind to accomplish that. You also experience focus, concentration, clarity, deep memory when the mind is enlightened. You'll notice your personal and professional relationships will be at ease. They'll really blossom. You won't even be in a bad mood anymore because you've uprooted the causes and conditions that are producing the bad mood. So I'll be teaching you guys about this after we do meditation, helping you guys see how to do this, because the Eightfold Path is the path to enlightenment. You would need to know this inside and out in order to actually experience this enlightened mental state. So we're going to ease into the meditation with the chanting, which you guys are welcome to join in. Then afterwards, like I mentioned, we're going to be moving into those teachings of the Buddha. But during the meditation, you're going to hear me providing you guidance, where I'll be guiding you on the meditation. It'll be kind of like instructions and guiding you. We'll all be meditating together. Everyone here at the temple and everyone online will just be meditating together, and you'll be hearing me kind of guiding you through the meditation. But then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're just all meditating together. I'm sure you'll hear occasional sounds. All these sounds are temporary. They're not permanent. They are impermanent. So when you hear the dog bark, or you might hear a bird chirp or a car go by or something like this, just understand that it's impermanent, and you can let go of that and bring your mind back to the breath as I guide you in the meditation. And then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting as well. let me provide you a little bit of guidance on the body positioning, because there's 4 positions that you can meditate in. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking position. Typically, students are learning in the seated position, and this is kind of like a primary position that students will typically meditate in, either sitting on the floor, in a chair, on a bench, on a sofa. You can sit however you're comfortable, truly. So what I'm going to share with you is just some pointers and some guidance. It's not something that you're required to do, because it's not about everybody doing it exactly the same way. So typically, if you're on the floor, you have your legs crossed, and if you have them just lightly crossed, this is best, because if they're real tight, it'll impede the circulation. So if you just have your legs lightly crossed, this would be best. Some people like to put their legs off the mat, off the cushion, because this gets your hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, and this will allow the circulation to flow in the lower body. The hands and the arms, the Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. And if this is comfortable, you could use it. But again, it's not about everybody doing it exactly the same way, because this isn't actually possible. If you find this comfortable, go for it. You could use it. But there's other options too. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people like to put their hands resting in their lap. It's really up to you. You would like your lower body and hands and arms to be relaxed and comfortable. The upper body should be erect. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you are real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So by having the sternum up and the shoulders back, it keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, so you can actively train the mind. This is an active, dedicated, purposeful training of the mind. So this will help your mind to stay attentive during the meditation. It also helps you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, having some nice breaths where you can expand the lungs. So again, I'm going to ease into the meditation with the chanting. Feel free to join along, and then afterwards I will come in with some guidance to help you with the meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddha Mahakeva Bhutang Mahakavanhang Apivateyami Savakhato Mahakavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddha Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavito Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawap Manusrang Bhutto Bhagavati Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable. In the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then when you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath. Either the sound of the breath as it enters the nose, or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavanang Abhivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Samhono Sakato Rokavito Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Bhuto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Again, welcome to all of you guys here at the temple. Welcome to everyone online who's joining us. Welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see you here at Wat Tung Yu. Today's class is what we call our group learning program. This is a foundational program where students are learning and developing on the path to enlightenment, training their mind in order to get to this enlightened mental state where the mind's peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You can join this program here at the temple. We also have the ability for you to come in through live stream or Zoom or any of these other technologies as you travel around the world and you would like to learn the path to enlightenment. What I'm going to be sharing with you today is called the Eightfold Path. I'm going to be sharing with you this teaching of the Buddha, which is a core central teaching. In order to get to enlightenment, you would need meditation and you would need to learn meditation and practice meditation, but you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment with only meditation. You're going to need other teachings, and it's this Eightfold Path that is going to share with you all the teachings that you need, and there's other teachings that integrate into this. So even meditation is part of the Eightfold Path. So there's various factors that you need to practice in order to get to enlightenment. You're kind of dialing in this Eightfold Path into your life. This is your life practice where you're developing your mind and training your mind. When you're starting your journey to on the path to enlightenment, it's important that you don't believe any of the teachings of the Buddha. His teachings aren't about a bunch of beliefs and then hoping something good happens when you die. Instead, he's helping you to understand how to train your mind, how to uproot certain pollutions out of your mind. And when you uproot those pollutions, this is where you'll see the peace, the calm, the serenity, the contentedness, and the joy coming into the mind. You'll notice all the discontent feelings are completely eliminated by the time you get to enlightenment. And this is occurring through gradual learning, gradual practice and gradual progress. This Eightfold Path is something that you dial into your life. It's kind of like a speaker system. A speaker system, you would like to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, so you kind of dial the dials in and try to get a better and better quality sound out by tweaking these dials. The same thing is true with this Eightfold Path. What the Buddha is providing you here is guidance to help you understand how he got to this enlightened mental state. He's not giving you beliefs. He's not giving you rules or commandments to follow. He's not trying to guilt, shame, or fear you into anything. He's not trying to convince you to do anything. It's up to you if you would like to get to enlightenment. If you're interested in eliminating the discontent feelings, this is the way to actually do it. But you can't believe what I share with you today. If you just believe what I share with you, you won't know what's true or false. You need to be able to get to wisdom in order to get to enlightenment. And the way you get to wisdom is you learn something, you examine it, you investigate it. Then you start reflecting on it to independently verify whether it's true or it's false. And then you practice it, integrating it into your life. And this is where you'll see the truth and gain wisdom of knowing what's wise and what's unwise. Because in the unenlightened state, there's a lack of wisdom, where the mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. There are certain natural laws that the Buddha was teaching during his lifetime, and it's awakening to these natural laws. What we mean by awakening to these natural laws is cultivating wisdom about them. So you're going to need to cultivate wisdom about these natural laws because they affect you whether you're aware of them or not. So when you're angry and frustrated, agitated and annoyed and all those other discontent feelings, this is your mind struggling, having difficulties because the mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. It lacks wisdom, and that's why you're struggling. But when you cultivate wisdom, you can overcome those struggles and get to a point where you don't struggle anymore because you understand these natural laws. You're fully awake to them. You have cultivated the mind with this wisdom and gotten to this enlightened mental state. And you've done this same thing of learning, reflecting, and practicing with other natural laws in your life as well. When we all grew up, we didn't understand the natural law of gravity. This natural law of gravity was affecting us whether we were aware of it or not. And we were struggling and having difficulties with this natural law. We fell down, we hit our head, we bumped our elbow, we busted open our knees. We had all these difficulties. We broke our toys. We struggled. We cried. We were upset because we didn't understand this natural law. Even though we were 1 year old, 3 years old, 6 years old, we were affected by it, whether we were aware of it or not. And these natural laws of existence that the Buddha taught, it's the same exact thing, that we're affected by them, whether we're aware of them or not. And you will struggle and have difficulties in life when you don't understand these natural laws. But slowly but surely, we gain wisdom of the natural law of gravity. And now we're at the point where we're fully awake to this natural law. And we don't struggle with it anymore. We can climb ladders, we can ride bicycles, we can ride motorbikes, we can do all kinds of things. We get on airplanes, travel all over the world because we understand the natural law of gravity. We're fully awake to it. So the same thing is occurring if you would like to get to this enlightened mental state, is where you're learning, practicing, you're developing your mind, you're gaining wisdom of these natural laws, and slowly but surely you'll make wiser and wiser decisions in the world. Because when we fully awoke to the natural law of gravity, we started making wiser decisions. We started tying our shoes a bit tighter. We started looking at the surface of the sidewalk as we were walking. We stopped being so giddy and bouncing around like we were when we were a child. We realized that that's unwise. That when we were so giddy and so excited, we fell down and we hurt ourselves as a child. So we started being more calm and kind of walking through the world in a more calm way, with more consciousness, more awareness, more wise decision-making about the way that we navigated the world with this natural law of gravity. And the same thing can occur with the natural laws of existence. As you wake into that wisdom, you're going to naturally make wiser decisions, not because it's a rule or it's a commandment, but because you now have wisdom of this natural law. You're making decisions about the natural law of gravity all the time that nobody told you about, but you just know that it's wise. And I use this example of this glass of water behind me. I choose to put this glass of water behind me rather than put it here in front of me. Not because somebody told me to do it, not because it's a rule or it's a commandment, but just because I have wisdom of the natural law of gravity. And I know if I put this glass of water here, I'm going to spill it. It's only a matter of time if my leg hits it or my hand hits it, and it's going to spill. So I wisely choose to put it behind me, and then I don't spill it. Right? These are natural decisions that we make because when we have wisdom, we're going to naturally make wiser decisions because we are wise to the natural laws. So it's the same thing with the teachings of the Buddha. As I guide you through this Eightfold Path today, don't believe what I share. Don't believe what I write in these books. Don't believe anything that you hear anybody say. Because with belief, you're just believing it, because either you convinced yourself to believe it or somebody else convinced you to believe it. But you don't know what's true or false. And your mind can waver. It can shake up. But by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind's steady, it's stable, it's unshakable, because you know the truth. So as I go, you're welcome to ask any and all questions, whether you're here at the temple or you're online. You can ask any and all questions that you like. Here at the temple, if you could ask questions with the microphones here, this will help the people online to be able to hear you. We'll be able to hear you here at the temple too. In this white bowl in front of the camera, we have a bunch of microphones. All you need to do is get one of those, press the gray button on it, just wait a second or two, the lights will come on, and then you just hold it up to your chin and we'll be able to hear you. And you can even keep the microphone with you, because you might have more than one question, or the people around you might have a question, and you can share the microphones around. There's plenty here for all of you guys. And then for those of you guys online, if you'd like to ask questions, you can put it into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and ask any questions that you like. So in order to get started with the path to enlightenment and understanding the Eightfold Path, you would need to first start with what's called right view. This is the very first teaching of the Buddha. This is the foundation that's going to help you build out this entire Eightfold Path. Without right view, you wouldn't be able to actually get to enlightenment or even get started on the path to enlightenment. And I taught this last week. It's what's called the Four Noble Truths. I'm going to just give a little bit of an overview of this week, because there's some people here that weren't here last week. This Eightfold Path is organized into 3 sections: wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline. I'm going to walk you through this using the words of the Buddha. So this first step, right view, using the words of the Buddha, you can see what he says here in his own teachings, in his own words. He says, "In what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view." What he's doing here is he's pointing to another teaching. There is something called the Four Noble Truths. This is the help you understand the problem in the unenlightened mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. In 4 simple statements, which you can independently verify on your own, he's going to explain to you what the problem is that you're experiencing in day-to-day life, what's causing it, how to eliminate it, and the path forward. So here, he's just pointing to this other teaching. So underneath of this line, I'm putting the top section of the Four Noble Truths, so you can gain confidence that yes, what the Buddha is talking about in the Eightfold Path is the Four Noble Truths. And then I'm going to share with you kind of a little bit of an overview of the Four Noble Truths, because I taught it in detail last week. But if you would like to learn it in detail, what you're going to need, I have it recorded, I have it in books and audiobooks, and all these things are available for you at no cost. So here, from the top section of the Eightfold Path, which is a core central teaching which integrates all of his other teachings, he's pointing to the Four Noble Truths. And you can see here the top section of the Four Noble Truths where he's kind of summarizing it. But underneath of this, he's got a lot more details about the Four Noble Truths. In order to understand the Four Noble Truths, you need to first understand what's called the 3 universal truths. We call these truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true. Other people know that they're true. But you need to know that they're true in order to get to enlightenment. And that's why you're not believing these teachings. So here, what the Buddha is doing is he's teaching you the way the world is. He's not teaching you the way the world should be, that if you follow certain rules and commandments, that the world will become a peaceful place. Instead, he's helping you to understand the way the world is. That's what the natural laws of existence are. He's explaining to you the way the world functions, because with the lack of that wisdom, you'll struggle and have difficulties when you don't understand the world around you. Living in a world that you don't understand, you'll struggle, you'll have difficulties. If you're ever watching the news and you're like, I just don't understand why people do that, you're living in a world that you don't understand. If your brothers or sisters or your parents are doing things, and you're like, I just don't understand why he keeps doing that, you're living in a world that you don't understand. So the Buddha is helping you to understand this natural world by helping you awaken to this wisdom. And then you learn it, you reflect on it, and you practice to be able to see the wisdom for yourself. So this first universal truth of impermanence, he's explaining to you that everything in the world around you is impermanent. This is a building block to be able to understand the Four Noble Truths. This is very important because what you're going to see is the unenlightened mind craves permanence. It wants things to be permanent, but yet you live in an impermanent world. So when you start to understand that everything around you is impermanent, you start to then reflect on it. The way that you independently verify this is try to find something that's permanent. Something you see, something you hear, something you smell, something that you taste, something that touches your body, something that goes through the mind. All of these things are impermanent, meaning they're temporary. They're going to be constantly changing. You can see when you walk down the street, there's a crack in the sidewalk. That's impermanence. You can see this physical body that you're inhabiting. This body is constantly changing. It's impermanent. Your relationships are impermanent. They're constantly changing. Your bank account's impermanent. It's going up and down, right? All these things are impermanent. The weather is impermanent. But the thing is that you're going to see in the Four Noble Truths is the mind is craving permanence. It wants things to be permanent, but yet you live in an impermanent world. This is the lack of wisdom and the confusion that the unenlightened mind has. This second universal truth is called discontentedness. Some people refer to this as suffering. If you've learned the teachings of the Buddha in other places, they might refer to it that way. The original word that the Buddha used was dukkha. At least that's what's in the Pali Canon. And this is being translated in the teachings that I'm sharing as discontent, discontented, and discontentedness, because it fully explains what the Buddha was teaching. He was teaching that the unenlightened mind has three feelings. It has pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. And you can independently verify this because you know your mind's unenlightened. So what you do is you take what the Buddha is explaining here and you reflect on it to see, is this actually what you experience? Do you experience what's called conditioned feelings? What a conditioned feeling is based on some condition, you're going to now get happy or excited or elated or thrilled. So if you wake up in the morning and you see it's sunny and you're like, yay, it's sunny outside. Oh man, I'm so excited. I can't wait to go outside. I want to go have fun. This is a conditioned feeling. Not a bad person. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just what the unenlightened mind does is it bases its inner feelings on some condition. The condition is the sun. Now that the sun is there, the mind's excited and it's happy. But the problem that you're going to see, or at least the cause of the problem, is that now, because the mind's craving the sun to be permanent, it's impermanent. When it changes, now you're going to be sad or frustrated, experiencing these painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, because the mind's craving this permanence. It's wanting things to be permanently one particular way. And when the unenlightened mind gets what it wants, it gets happy, excited, elated. But when it doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. And then there's these neither painful nor pleasant feelings. I have boredom and loneliness in there, but some people say that's painful for them. So you could put it into the painful category if you like. But shyness is a good example. It's not painful. It's not pleasant. It's neither painful nor pleasant. Or if somebody you didn't know was sitting next to you and your body was touching their body, like maybe on public transportation or something, you might say, I'm kind of like uncomfortable. The mind's dissatisfied in this situation. This is discontentedness, where the mind is not peaceful. It's not calm. It's not serene. It's not joyful because there's some discontentedness in the mind. The mind is discontent, discontented, or experiencing discontentedness. This is the problem in the unenlightened mind, that it experiences conditioned feelings. Based on some condition, the mind is going to experience a certain feeling, either pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant. If your bank account is here, maybe you're happy, but when your bank account goes here, you're sad, right? If your mom and dad do this, you're happy. But if they do this, you're angry, you're sad, you're frustrated, you're irritated, you're annoyed, right? If your boss does this, maybe you're happy. But if he does that or she does that, you're angry or sad or frustrated, right? So this is the mind going up and down and up and down. This is the problem that the unenlightened mind is experiencing. It's called conditional feelings. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're experiencing unconditioned mental qualities where the mind's just always peaceful. It's always joyful. It's unconditioned happiness that the mind is experiencing. So in the unenlightened state, if you wake up in the morning, you see it's sunny outside, you might get so excited. And then when you go take a shower and you come back, you might get irritated or frustrated or agitated or annoyed when it's raining. As an enlightened being, you're already happy before you ever woke up. When you woke up, the mind's already happy. It's unconditional happiness. There doesn't need to be any condition met in order for it to be happy. So in the mind, there's all these conditions that if this is true and this is true and this is true and this is true, then I will be happy. But if those things aren't met, then the mind's going to be sad or angry or frustrated or some other discontent feeling that's painful. So this is the problem in the unenlightened mind. But by the time you get to enlightenment, all that's been eliminated. You've retrained your mind. You've essentially rewired the mind to no longer experience conditional feelings, that your mind can just maintain its peace and joy permanently. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this when we get to the Four Noble Truths. The universal truth of non-self, this is actually the solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. He discovered 10 individual pollutions or taints or defilements. We also refer to them as fetters. The reason why we refer to them as the 10 fetters is because during the lifetime of the Buddha in ancient times, if you were a prisoner, they would put a shackle around your ankle with a chain and a ball, and this is how they would keep you trapped in a certain area. Nowadays, we put prisoners in jail cells, but back then, you would attach a fetter to their leg. It was a shackle, a chain, and a ball. So the Buddha discovered these 10 fetters, these 10 pollutions that are keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. And what you're doing on the path to enlightenment is you're eradicating these fetters from the mind. You're purifying the mind of these pollutions. And as you do, you'll see the qualities of the peace and the joy and all those other qualities with enlightenment start shining through more and more and more. So the universal truth of non-self is explaining to you that there is no self, that this body, it's not you. This mind is not you. But the problem in the unenlightened state is the mind will cling to this. It'll hold on to the body. It'll hold on to the mind, thinking that this is who you are. It'll hold on to the self-image. It'll hold on to the self-identity. So now when somebody compliments you and says, wow, you're so handsome, that shirt brings out the colors of your eyes. Or, oh, you're so beautiful, that hairstyle looks so nice on you. You'll get these pleasant feelings like, based on the condition that somebody's talking and complimenting this physical body, and the mind's thinking that this is who you are. But then it's only a matter of time because of impermanence that somebody's going to say something degrading and disparaging about this physical body. And now you're going to experience painful feelings. Or if you've ever spilt something on your clothing and you were embarrassed, this is because the mind's clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are. And now you're not being perceived in the world the way that you want to be perceived by others. And now the mind is embarrassed. It's shaken up by this. Or if you saw a mole or a pimple in the mirror, or you saw a gray hair, or you saw that your hair is thinning, or you're losing your hair, you're getting a little extra fat here or there, you might have been shaken up by that. You might have been discontent because the mind's clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are. There's also a self-identity that the unenlightened mind will cling to, maybe based on your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, maybe your nationality or your job or occupation. You might cling to this, thinking that this is who you are, like I am American, or I am German, or I am Japanese, or I am Canadian, or I am Lithuanian, or I am Ecuadorian, or I am anything. I am an Aussie. This I am, or I am a police officer. I am a lawyer. I am a boyfriend. I am a girlfriend. If you've identified with these types of things, when you're in that role, you feel pretty decent. But then when things start changing because of impermanence, you'll struggle. So if you've been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend and you identified with I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, or I am a husband, I am a wife, when you guys broke up, you might have wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship because the mind wanted to assume that identity. It didn't feel comfortable when you were single because the mind identified with I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend. And now when you're in a relationship, okay, everything feels decent because I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend. But then when you get out of the relationship, you really struggle because you don't identify with I am single. So you might have thought the way to solve the problem is to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. But that doesn't actually solve the problem. The problem is that the mind's clinging to this identity that I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, wanting it to be permanent, when in reality, it's not permanent because of the universal truth of impermanence. Or if you've been like a taxi driver, a food server, or a police officer, and maybe you got injured, or you got laid off, or you got fired, or maybe you retire. If you identify with, I am a police officer, now when you retire, you struggle because you're not a police officer anymore, or you got injured and you can't do that job anymore. You really struggle during that time. Or maybe your nationality. Maybe I am American. And now when you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody's saying something degrading and disparaging about the country that you come from. If you identify with I am that, now they're talking about me. And now you might be ready to fight, right? When you hear this kind of thing, you might get so angry. But what the Buddha is teaching you with the universal truth of non-self is there is no self. This body nor this mind is you. It's not who you are. And there's more to learn here, and I usually walk you through about how to independently verify all these things. You can learn this through the various teachings, and you're going to need to learn these because these are building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. And there's one other building block that you need too, which is to understand craving, desire, attachment. This is the way that the mind has longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of your affection, wanting things to be a certain way. It's like the mind thinks that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. It's an unquenchable thirst where the mind is chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing. The mind is like, I know what I need to be happy in this world. I need more money. Let me get more money. Chase, 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 more money. Let me get more money. And you get some more money maybe, and you're happy for a period of time, but then that fades away. Because it's a conditional feeling. It arises, it changes, and it fades away. And then you're like, I know what I need. I need a new boyfriend or a girlfriend. That's what'll do it. That's what'll fix everything. Let me chase after this. Let me get a new boyfriend or girlfriend. So you chase that for a little while. And then you might get one of those. And you feel really happy at the beginning. But then everything fades away. All that happiness fades away. Right? You start getting angry or disgruntled or frustrated in these relationships. And now, what do I need? What do I need? A new house, a new car, new jewelry. What do I need? You're just looking around the world. I need a new job. I need more friends. The mind just has this unquenchable thirst, thinking that your satisfaction is going to come from something external. So the mind chases and chases and chases. So if you've ever been in the mall and you're like, oh, a new pair of shoes. Yes, 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 yes. Oh, I want those new pair of shoes so bad. That's the craving. That's the longing. That's the yearning. It might have been a mobile phone. It might have been a computer. It might have been a video game. There are any number of things that your mind might be craving. The craving isn't the object. It's not the mobile phone or the computer. It's not the boyfriend or the girlfriend. It's what's going on inside your own mind. It's the longing, the yearning for those things. That's what craving, desire, attachment is. And you would need to know this in order to understand the teachings of the Buddha. So make sure you understand this. If you don't, let me know what you have questions about when we get to the question period, and I will help you to understand what this is further. Then I taught you last week the Four Noble Truths. This is where you understand the problem, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. This is where you can have a breakthrough. You can finally, once and for all, understand what's causing your anger and your sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings, because you've gone so many long period of time, so many lives, not understanding this wisdom. And because of that, you keep experiencing these discontent feelings over and over and over again. Because what we typically do in the unenlightened state is we think other people are making us angry. We will blame our anger and frustration on other people. We will say, you are making me angry. You are frustrating me. You are annoying me. But what you're going to learn here is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, and you can independently verify it. So the first noble truth is explaining the problem is discontentedness. Those conditioned feelings where the mind is forming its inner feeling on some condition, this is the problem. The mind's going up and down and up and down. The second noble truth is explaining the cause of that problem. The cause is craving, desire, attachment. The mind's longing, yearning, chasing after things, wanting things to be a certain way. And if it gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, and others. And if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings. It's the longing and yearning for something, the craving permanence. So for example, when you had that boyfriend and girlfriend, when you together, you felt so happy. You felt so excited. It felt so wonderful because you got what you wanted. You got your craving fulfilled. But then when you guys broke up, You got sad, you got frustrated or angry, you started getting bored or lonely, or you started missing this person. It's not the love that's causing that. Love is a genuine interest in seeing this person be well. That doesn't cause painful feelings. What's causing these feelings is the mind's craving for this relationship to be permanent. And the mind didn't understand the universal truth of impermanence, that all these things around you are impermanent. So with the lack of wisdom of these natural laws, the mind will struggle and it'll experience sadness, anger, frustration, and other feelings. So same thing if you had a brand new car. When you drove that car off the parking lot, you had all these pleasant feelings. Wow, brand new car. Oh, this is so great. But then when you park it at a store, you go inside, you come out, you see a scratch on your car, you'll be angry. You'll be frustrated because you're craving for this car to be permanently beautiful. We're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because obviously we walk around the world and attempt to not scratch people's cars. That's wise. But it would be wonderful to live in a world where your car never gets scratched. But that's not the world you live in. You live in an impermanent world where things are constantly changing. You live in an impermanent world. Things aren't permanent. But if you crave permanence, when you see that scratch on your car, you'll get frustrated. It's not the scratch that's causing the frustration. And it's not the person who scratched your car. They're not causing your frustration. What's causing the frustration is the mind is having craving, desire, attachment, longing, yearning, holding on to this car, wanting it to be permanent. So like when grandma and grandpa died, or mom or dad or brothers and sisters, if you grieved when they died, it's because the mind's craving for them to be permanent. The mind's holding on, wanting them to be permanent. It's not your love. The love is a genuine interest in seeing them be well. When they're alive, you're getting what you want. Your craving is fulfilled, so you're happy. But then when they die, the mind doesn't like that impermanence. It struggles. Because mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, brothers and sisters, because they were born, they have to die. Just like all of us. We all die for exactly the same reason. We all die because we were born. That's why we all die, right? So if your mind's craving permanence in any of these situations and others, you will experience frustration, agitation, and other discontent feelings. When you get what you want, you'll get pleasant feelings. When you don't get what you want, you get painful feelings. So what you do to independently verify this is take a recent situation where you've been angry or irritated or annoyed, or even when you've been excited or happy. You can see that it's your own mind that's causing this. You can look at a situation either from today or yesterday or last week when you were angry and frustrated, and look at what was your mind wanting. If you would have got what you wanted, you would have gotten happy, excited, elated. But because you didn't get what you wanted in that situation, you got angry and frustrated or agitated or annoyed. And again, you're not a bad person. You don't need to feel guilty. You don't need to feel shameful. Everybody who's ever been born is unenlightened. It's just that the mind is lacking wisdom. It hasn't been trained. It doesn't understand true reality. So therefore, it's going to struggle and experience these discontent feelings. So you can awaken to this wisdom and learn how to train your mind to eliminate these discontent feelings. What the unenlightened mind will typically do is blame these feelings on other people. And when you blame these feelings on other people, you will push people away. You will be bitter and harsh and hostile towards them through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. Or you will put your expectations on people and you'll try to control people. But this doesn't solve the problem, because when you've pushed people away out of your life, you still get angry. You still get frustrated. You still get annoyed. If that was the true cause of the problem you were experiencing, when you push people out of your life, problem solved. You would be peaceful for the rest of your life. But when you push people out of your life, it doesn't solve the problem. You keep getting annoyed or frustrated or agitated. And when you've been bitter, harsh, and hostile towards people, that doesn't solve the problem either, because oftentimes the relationship gets damaged or it ends up ending. You end up breaking up in a relationship. The relationship ends because of the bitterness and the harshness and the hostility. Or when you were putting your expectations on people, trying to control people, trying to get them to do things your way, then the mind is then also doing things where it thinks that the problem is external. It's trying to push people away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, put your expectations on people. The mind's trying to solve the problem, but because it doesn't understand the cause of the problem, it's trying to fix something that isn't actually the true cause of the problem. It's trying to fix something external by pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, or putting your expectations on people. When you understand the Four Noble Truths, you understand the real problem is inside your mind, and now you can actually implement the tools and techniques that the Buddha taught and experience real progress and real improvement in your life. So the third noble truth is explaining the elimination of discontentedness as possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. You need to use the various tools and techniques that the Buddha shares, and when you eliminate these cravings, desires, attachments, when you're no longer chasing after things, but instead you can practice the middle way where you're gradually working towards a certain goal or objective, now you can actually get to peace and you get to joy. Because when you're chasing after things, you will only be happy when you get what you want. But if you were over here and you were indifferent and you could care less about what went on in your life, you're not going to be peaceful and joyful there either, because your mind's complacent and dull and lethargic. So it's only when you come to the middle where you have ambition, enthusiasm, you have motivation and encouragement, you gradually work towards goals, that you can then experience the peace and the joy, making wise decisions. So the third noble truth is explaining that if you eliminate craving, desire, attachment, then you'll experience the peace and the joy of the enlightened mind. And then the fourth noble truth is saying the way to accomplish the elimination of craving, desire, attachment is to practice the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the path to enlightenment. So that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. So this is just a little bit of an overview of this. Again, I usually take a good hour and a half to explain all of this. You should really learn that in order to fully understand it and have this breakthrough to understanding what is causing your discontent feelings, because you'll never solve your anger and sadness and all these other discontent feelings if you don't know what's causing them. So that's why this is the very first teaching, to be able to understand what's causing your discontent feelings, so that then you can actually apply all the other teachings of the Eightfold Path in order to actually eliminate them. So this is what we call establishing right view. What wrong view would be to blame other people for your feelings. This is typically what we do as we're growing up and we lack wisdom. We typically blame everyone else. We think everyone else is the problem. Because remember, you've got the ego in there telling you that you're so great. You're doing everything right and everyone else is doing things wrong. This is typically what the ego does, right? So right view is to understand it's craving, desire, attachment, that your own mind is causing these discontent feelings. So you don't need to go out into the world and train 8 billion people to do things your way. You can just train your own mind. And that's a lot less work. Just training one mind is going to be enough work by itself. You don't need to train other people to do things your way, because you won't get to peacefulness that way. You're going to need to train your mind to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And the way that you do that is through this Eightfold Path. So the second step of the Eightfold Path is called right intention. Some people refer to this as right thinking or right thought. This is because what you need to cultivate is the intention or the thinking or the thought of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. These are the words of the Buddha, where he's explaining these three aspects of right intention. What renunciation is where you have a willingness to let go. You're not holding on to things. You're not holding on to your false beliefs, because when you have belief in your mind, again, you don't know what's true or false, and you're just believing certain things. So you're going to need to cultivate wisdom. You're going to need to have this intention of renunciation where you're willing to let go of these false opinions and false views and unwholesome things that the mind is doing. If you just hold on to what you currently believe about the world, you will never be able to awaken to the wisdom of the natural laws of existence. So one of the beliefs that we typically have as we enter into the path to enlightenment is that other people are causing us to be angry. Other people are causing us to be frustrated. That's a belief that the mind has. But if you continue to hold on to that, you won't be able to get to enlightenment. So you're going to need to have this intention of renunciation, that as you learn wisdom and you see the truth, that it is indeed your own mind that's causing these discontent feelings, you're going to need to be willing to let those false beliefs go. So you're not getting rid of false beliefs by bringing in new beliefs. You're getting rid of these false beliefs by bringing in wisdom. And as you bring in this wisdom, then you'll be able to know the truth of true reality of what's truly happening in your mind and what's truly happening in the world around you. But if you didn't practice the intention of renunciation, which is essentially like having an open mind and being able to learn and understand and being able to willing to let go of the things that's no longer serving you, this is actually what's going to be able to help you. So the first false belief that you need to get rid of is that other people are causing you to be angry and frustrated, irritated, or annoyed. Any of these discontent feelings. And you do that through cultivating the wisdom of the Four Noble Truths. The intention of non-ill will. Non-ill will is a double negative. So this is the same way as saying the intention of goodwill, that you need to cultivate the thinking or the thought of goodwill. The ill will is like bitterness, hostility, animosity, anger, hatred towards others. What you're looking to do is cultivate just the opposite of that, which is active goodwill towards others, a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. This is what you would like to cultivate the intention or the thinking or the thought. And this is coupled with the next one, which is the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested in causing harm to other beings. Because as long as you're causing harm to other beings, this harm is going to come back to you. So if you practice the intention of harmlessness, then you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. And you would like to cultivate that thinking or that thought or that intention. And that's now going to help you with all the rest of the Eightfold Path to develop. So let me see what questions you guys have here. This is just a summary, but on this particular section of right view and right intention, let me see if you have any questions. The right view is the Four Noble Truths and accepting responsibility for your own feelings, your intentions, your speech, and your actions. We typically blame what we experience in life on other people. And if you continue to do that, you won't ever be able to cultivate wisdom about the unwise decisions that you're making that's leading to any specific result. So what right view is helping you to do is accept responsibility that what you're experiencing within your own mind and within your own life is based on your decisions. And this is really empowering, because if you understand that what you experience is based on your decisions, then anything that you don't particularly care for about your life or you would rather not occur in your life, you just need to cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. Whereas if you continue to say blame other people for the things you experience, then it's everyone else's fault that you're experiencing what you're experiencing, and you can't change anything about your life. But if you understand right view, that what you're experiencing is based on your own decisions, then you understand it's not about fault, it's not about blame, it's not about any of those kinds of things. It's just about seeing true reality and realizing that, hey, when you lack wisdom, you're going to naturally make unwise decisions. You can cultivate new wisdom and now make new decisions that produces new results in your life. And every single one of us have the ability to do that. That's free will. And then the intention of renunciation is practicing the intention. The right intention is to practice the intention of renunciation, non-ill will or loving kindness, and the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm. So are there any questions on this first section that you guys would like to ask, either here at the temple or online? And remember, you can use the microphones here. Those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or raise your hand in Zoom if you like. Yes, ma'am.
So I think
it was on. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's still on, but it was when you were talking.
So we make wise decisions, and if we make wise decisions, basically bad things happen. But say in the past we've made decisions that haven't been particularly wise. For example, a relationship that wasn't particularly healthy, and time goes on and you're making more wise decisions, but there are repercussions from this unwise decision you've made here, and you're trying to practice right you and right intention, but these things still keep coming up. And sometimes, for me, I find, I practice love and kindness, I practice non-ill will, but it's not stopping some not desirable behaviour towards me, and I feel kind of powerless about that at the moment. I can make right decisions and more wise decisions moving forward, and I'm in the process of that. But it can be very challenging sometimes, and the majority of the time I feel, I'm on top of it, and I practice love and kindness, I practice all of this. But then there are some times when even when I'm doing all that, when these things just are very present, and it's very difficult in those moments sometimes to not feel pain, to not feel fear, to not, so is that like karma or something like that I'm having to repay, or I can see that there will come a point when this will hopefully stop, and I'm just going through a process. But sometimes, honestly, it feels unfair when I'm spending 95% of the day practicing love and things and non-ill and these things, and as much as I possibly can, and then I'm feeling these feelings of pain and fear and harm being directed towards me.
Yeah. So this is the common thing that you're going to experience as you're transitioning your mind. You just started studying, I think, in the last few months, and it's going to take you multiple years to fully transform the mind. So even though you feel like you're making certain wise decisions, I'm sure you're not making 100% wise decisions at this particular moment. But even if you did, let's just say you could snap your fingers and instantly practice the teachings of the Buddha. You've made unwise decisions for all these years, and now you're going to experience the unwholesome results of those things coming back to you. So once you start learning the teachings and you start practicing them, you start cleaning up your life kind of slowly over time. But in the process of doing that, you're going to experience unwholesomeness coming back to you because of the unwise decisions you've made in the last several years. That this is what we call unwholesome karma. But the difference is that you didn't have this guidance of the Eightfold Path to be able to now make wise decisions in the present moment. So 5 years ago, when people were bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, you might have been bitter, harsh, and hostile right back, thinking that that's the way to solve the problem is I'm going to show them who I am, and you're going to growl and roar at them because they're growling and roaring at you. But now when you have these teachings, you start doing something different. You start living this better way of life. So when people are growling and roaring and being bitter at you, you realize the most unwise thing to do would be bitter and harsh and hostile back, because it's just going to come back to you. So now you gradually transform your mind where you're bringing down your unwise decisions and you're gradually bringing up your wise decisions more and more and more. And over time, this is where your mind and your life transforms. But because your mind currently has pollution still in it, you're going to still be making some unwise decisions along the way. But as you gradually transform your mind, you'll see improvement to the condition of your mind and the condition of your life. But it's going to take time. So there are certain relationships, since this is what you're honing in on, there are certain relationships in your life right now that you might decide to let go of. And you realize like, hey, there's too much bitterness, there's too much hostility, I'm not committed to the relationship, and the best way to clean this up out of my life is to let go and move on from the relationship. Oftentimes when the mind's craving and clinging, you're not comfortable to do that. You don't want to let go, but you're going to need to let go of certain relationships. Then there's some relationships where you're going to potentially put on pause and you're going to step away. You're going to work on your mind for a little bit. You're more committed to these relationships. Just in your own mind, you're going to put these relationships on pause and kind of step away and do some work. And now as you come back, maybe your parents or your brothers or sisters, you'll kind of you have cleaned up your mind, and now you can be better in these relationships. And then there's this third category of relationships where they're brand new people you haven't even met yet. You'll only ever be loving and kind in those relationships, and that's what will come back to you. So you're going to need to let go of some relationships. You're going to need to clean up some of your relationships, and you'll need to forge new relationships with people who aren't being bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, because you're only being loving and kind to them. And over time, multiple years, you gradually transform your mind and your life. It's not going to be 3-month thing. The Buddha took 6 years to get to enlightenment. So it's going to take you some time, but you gradually work at it and you gradually see improvement as you go forward. Yeah, you're welcome. See if that mic's on. I'm not sure that it was on. Yeah, it's not on. Sorry for all of you guys online for the question. You guys probably didn't hear it, but you probably perhaps understood the answer. Okay, yeah, sometimes the batteries are dying. They're impermanent. The Buddhist teachings describe all this stuff.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, this one's working. Regarding the 3 characteristics, I understand the first, the third one. I mean, impermanence, fine. Mm-hmm. Suffering or discontentment, fine. Non-self. I cannot, for the life of me, independently verify that I am not me.
Okay, I'll teach you how to do that. So the way that you learn how to do this is you think about your life when you were a child, when you were a teenager, when you were early adulthood, and now. And you can see that your characteristics, your personality has been constantly changing, that there is no permanent self. You can look at, like, if you had your arm amputated, right, and you only had one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? You say no, right? So intellectually, you understand this body isn't you. Because if I asked you that question, if your arm's amputated, you only have one hand and one arm, and I say, are you less of a person? You said yes. But because of the mind's confusion, that personal existence view, the pollution of mind, it will falsely think that this body is you. But you just answered. You said, no, I'm not less of a person, because intellectually you understand that this body isn't you. But when you're out there in the world and somebody says, something maybe degrading or disparaging about this shirt or your hair or something, you'll get frustrated, you'll get angry, you'll get irritated, because the mind's clinging to this body thinking it's you. But intellectually, it's not you. But the mind has this pollution, this confusion where it thinks that this body is you. Or sometimes I suggest to students to point to, where are you? Where are you? And sometimes people will point, and I show them, like, this is just a shirt. This isn't you. You're not that shirt. That shirt isn't you. It's just, someone might point to the skin. That skin isn't you. That's just skin, right? It's constantly changing. You could take off the skin and hold it up, and is that you? Is that who you are? People are like, no. Okay, so you throw away the skin. Where are you? Someone might point again. Well, you've got bones, you've got muscle tissue, you've got fluids, you've got all these things, but none of these things are you. The universal truth of non-self is oftentimes the most challenging for people to understand. So when we get to chapter 16 of this program, I go into it in detail because students need a lot more detail, and you need certain proactive ways of training to be able to eliminate the personal existence view, and it takes more time. So if you're around or you log in, you can come. If you would like to learn it before then, I've taught that class many, many, many times. You can watch it through the recordings and the podcasts and things like that, because you need more information than just what I shared here. But this body isn't you. This mind isn't you. But the problem is that because you've been given a label at birth, you probably have a name, right? That label, you're identifying with, this is who I am. This is me. So all through our life, we've been taught that this is me. So getting to the point where you realize that this isn't you, it takes some time and some contemplation and some reflection. What the Buddha is essentially teaching you is to not to cling to this body, wanting it to be permanent. Don't cling to this mind, thinking that this is who you are. And then you can get to peace and liberation. If you keep clinging to this body, somebody says something agreeable, you get pleasant feelings. They say disagreeable things, you get painful feelings. Same thing with what's going on with the mind, that you'll keep getting shaken up when there's a certain self-identity in there. So by eliminating the clinging, you'll be able to get some more peace and more joy. But you need to know more about it to really be able to fully implement it. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
So my question is related to his question. So I also try to understand it. So I am non-self. So, and then hearing explanation, the lecture, it sounds like, so some a being without title. So as long as we are in the human being society, so we have a lot of title kind of made by human rule. So like nationality, and then skin color, and then sex, and whatever rule in the society, job. So without those title, so do you think so? I'm on the right track. So I am a being, so without any condition or without any title. Then, but even without mind. So you mentioned mind is very changeable. So maybe kind of what I felt so far is, so we have to be flexible. So mind is not stay in certain place. So I like it, but the next day I don't like it. So so I thought mind is part of me, but even mind is not me. And then what I am non-self. So I thought, so after I died, then so the physically, so my body gone, and then but I thought the mind. So I think you mentioned that a kind of spark, so jump into somewhere, and then so it's reached other realm, sometimes animal realm, and sometimes the other realm. But mind, even mind is not myself. So a little bit confusing stuff. So, but so far what I understood, so about I am non-self, is without title, like kind of baby. So when we are born, even in a poor family or rich family, the baby doesn't notice where they are. So, sorry, I can't summarize well, but I like to know, so I'm on the right track or different.
Okay, so I'm going to answer what I think your question is, but if I'm not answering it, let me know. You can ask a follow-up question. So the problem isn't the title, right? If we work for a job, we're a director, we're a manager, we're a president, or whatever the title is, that's not the problem. The problem is that the mind's adopting this title as who we are as a person. Like, I am a manager, or I am a director. And now when you work at a different job, then you're not at that anymore. When you're not having that title, now you struggle, right? So that's what the universal truth of non-self is helping you to get to, where you don't identify with these things as who you are as a person. That title is not permanent. But if your mind craves it and adopts it as your identity of who you are, and it clings to it, now you're going to be discontent when you're not doing that any longer. Because whatever titles we have, whether it's president, manager, director, employee, whatever it is, none of these things are permanent. But when the mind's adopting this view that this body is mine, this mind is mine, this is who I am, now when you adopt that of thinking that's who you are and you're clinging to it, when things start changing because of impermanence, it will change, you'll be frustrated, you'll be agitated, your mind will be discontent in some way or another. Does that answer your question?
But yeah, I understand what you said. So people really judge. So from the kind of book cover. So but so without judging the book cover, so I am me. Could I say like no?
There's no I here.
I'm no self anyway.
So like when the Buddha talks about death, for example, he doesn't say like I will die, right? He talks about the dissolution of the body because the body is impermanent. The body is one thing, the mind is another thing. They're together right now, but they're going to separate at death.
Yeah.
But I haven't died. It's just that the body is impermanent, the mind's impermanent. It's just experiencing impermanence. But if you cling to this I or this me, this is where you're going to experience discontentedness as a result. But let's talk about it more because you come regularly. Let's talk about it more when we get to chapter 16. Yeah. But if you'd like to stick around after class and talk about it more, we can talk about it then too. You guys are welcome. I'll go into it as deep as you like, but just to stay on the topic of the Eightfold Path.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, this is an important topic, but today it was just about kind of introducing you and refreshing you about this teaching. I just
like to develop my kind of understanding. Thank you.
You guys are welcome to stick around and we can talk as much about it as you'd like. Okay. So I'm going to move on to the next steps of the Eightfold Path, which are right speech, right action, and right livelihood. This is where you're starting to learn about moral conduct. Whenever you're learning moral conduct from the teachings of the Buddha, you should never think about them as rules or commandments or that he's trying to force you or require you to do anything. Instead, what he's teaching you is this natural law of Gotama, this cause and effect or this action and results, that he's helping you to be able to see wise decision making that leads to wholesome results or wholesome Gotama, or unwise decisions that lead to unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. Some people refer to it as karma. In the original teachings of the Buddha in the Pali language, it's referred to as Gama because this is the Pali language. The word karma is the Sanskrit version. If it just translated to one English word, I would use that word. It'd be much easier for everybody. What this word means is it means cause and effect or action and results. It's the results of your decisions. It's your life. It's your decisions and it's your results. Everything you experience is a result of decisions that you're making. It's your karma, right? Like look at your hairstyle. Look at the clothes you wear. Look at the food you ate today or yesterday. All these are decisions that you're making. Whether you're sitting here listening to me or not, this is a decision that you're making, right? This is your karma, the results of your decisions. The natural law of karma, it's not controlled by any particular being. It's not about punishments and rewards. It's not about who's at fault or who's to blame. It's essentially a sequence of events that there's some cause and there's going to be some effect, or there's some action and there's some result. And the Buddha is going to provide you in right speech, right action, and right livelihood, certain wise and unwise decisions that lead to either wholesome results or unwholesome results. So think about that as you're learning things like right speech, because here in right speech, he's teaching you 4 things that would be unwise. Because if you're practicing any of these things, there's a certain craving that's motivating it. Because remember, the Eightfold Path is designed to help you eliminate craving, desire, attachment. So here he's explaining to eliminate lying, to eliminate slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. If you were lying, which we've all lied growing up, there was something you wanted. There was something you were longing, yearning for. And if you told the truth, you weren't going to get it. But when you lied, you thought that you were going to get what you wanted because there was an underlying craving there. So in order for you to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, and experience wholesome results in your life, you're going to need to eliminate lying. And you can look at your life. You can independently verify this. Whenever you lied, did it produce wholesome results for you? The answer is no. Right? We typically get caught in our lies. People find us to be untrustworthy, undependable. If you've done a lot of lying, you had to consciously figure out and obsessively figure out, what did you say to one person versus another person versus another person? How could you ever get to peace and joy if you're lying? Because people aren't going to see you as being dependable and trustworthy. Your relationships are going to get damaged. So that's the unwholesome results or the unwholesome gamma of lying. So the Buddha is teaching you this cause and effect or action and result, that it would be wise to tell the truth, because then you'll be dependable and reliable. Your mind can be calm. You don't have to constantly figure out and obsessively figure out, what did I say to one person versus another? Because you're just speaking the truth. It's very straightforward and very easy. Then slander or gossip. is where you're degrading or disparaging other people and damaging their reputation, either a person, an organization, a company, or something like this. There's a craving in there. Usually the mind wants to look good. The mind thinks that if I put out somebody else's candle, my candle will shine brighter. Right? This is typically what's going on when someone's slandering or gossiping. But when you put out someone else's candle, the room gets darker, right? It doesn't get brighter. So what you would like to do is not gossip and slander people. And you can see the truth on this, that it produces unwholesome results. There's people that have been murdered for slander and gossip. I'm not sharing with you the way the world should be. I'm sharing with you the way the world is. That if you go out there and you gossip and slander people, this is all going to come back to you. You can get injured, you can get beat up, you can get murdered. At the very least, people are going to be gossiping and slandering about you. Because when you're gossiping and slandering with your friends and family, when your back is turned, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you. So eliminating gossip and slander is going to be very helpful for your life. Refraining from harsh speech. This is your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. You're going to need to pay attention to that, because when you're speaking harshly, there's a craving in there. They're longing, yearning. It's almost like an animal growling, right? When an animal wants something, it'll show its teeth and it'll growl and it'll roar. It'll try to fear another animal into doing what it wants you to do. Well, the human being in the unenlightened state, you're not an animal. You're in a human state, but your mind is oftentimes functioning like an animal. You'll growl and roar. That's what the harsh speech is, trying to fear another human being into doing what you want them to do. Because the mind thinks the way to solve this problem of this anger and frustration that you're experiencing is to convince other people to do things your way. And the growling and the roaring will maybe fear this other being into doing things your way. And this is the misunderstanding that the unenlightened mind has. But if you're being bitter, harsh, and hostile to people with your harshness, this is all going to come back to you. It's going to produce results where your friends, your family, your life partner gets used to you being harsh and bitter, and they're going to be that same way with you. So you're going to need to clean up your practice in order to clean up your relationships. And then frivolous speech, this is like idle chatter, like yada, 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 yada. You're not really having a conversation. It's really more broadcasting. And if you've ever done that, or you've been around somebody that's done that, it's like, oh my goodness, when is this person going to be quiet? Like, wow, this is a lot of stuff. It's almost like it's harming other people, right? Trying to constantly listen and hear what it is that you're saying. So you like to be very clear, very direct, very concise, very beneficial in the way that you speak. Because in order to have frivolous speech, there's a craving in there. It's just yada, 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 just obsessively talking. So you would like to clean up these four things, where you're not lying, you're not having slander or gossip, you're not having harsh speech, and you're not having frivolous speech. This will produce improved communication in your relationships. But then the Buddha has another teaching. It's called the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. This is a deeper level teaching that integrates into the Eightfold Path, which this is the way you would ultimately like to build up your practice. Your personality, your character, it's going to be unique to you, but you can be practicing these 5 factors where you speak at the right time or proper time, what you say is true, you speak gentle, you speak beneficially, and you speak with a mind of loving kindness. I go through this in detail in the book and in other classes where you learn about each one of these factors, and you can independently verify that this is the natural laws of existence. Because you can take a situation where your conversation didn't go very well, and you will be able to see you and or the other person wasn't practicing these 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Take a situation now, just look in your own mind. Maybe a recent situation where the conversation didn't go well. You were probably not speaking at the proper time. What you said wasn't true. You weren't speaking gentle. You weren't speaking with a mind of loving kindness. You weren't speaking beneficially. These are the 5 factors that you're going to need to gradually tweak more and more and practice closer and closer in order to improve your relationships. So as you're practicing these more and more, that's where you'll see the improvement. So here, what you're doing is you're developing your mind to be able to speak in a way that's wise. And when you're speaking this way, in the unwise way, you're going to experience unwholesome results. But when you speak wisely, you will see that your relationships will drastically improve. So just like you can confirm that when you speak unwisely, it produces unwholesome results. There's some situations where you've had wonderful conversations with people. It went exactly wonderful. You didn't even realize you were practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. So when you learn these and you understand what they are, you dial them in closer and closer to your life. And now you consciously practice them. And as you consciously practice these in all your relationships, this is where gradually over time, you will see improvement in your relationships. So you're going to need to learn these. And I have them detailed in the book. I have them in various classes and recordings that I share them. But today, it's just kind of like a little bit of an overview of the Eightfold Path. I won't have time to go into it in excruciating detail. But if there's any questions you have about any of these, let me know and I will help you. There's right action. What right action is ensuring that you're not causing harm through your bodily actions. The Buddha in the Eightfold Path gives you 3 bodily actions that are very harmful and impactful. And you can see that if you've done these things, it produces unwholesome results. But what he's teaching you is he's teaching you to not cause harm through the body in your bodily actions. He's not giving you an exhaustive list of everything, because notice here, he doesn't say don't walk up to someone and punch them in the face. Well, of course, we know that if you understand right action, that if you cause harm through your bodily actions, it's going to produce harm, because that person's going to probably punch you back. They maybe have a knife or a gun. Maybe their friends or family are going to come attack you. Notice he also doesn't say don't drag your suitcase through the aisle of a plane and run over people's feet and bump into their knees, right? Well, you've kind of learned that that's unwise to do, because people are going to get harsh and bitter and hostile with you, right? So he's not giving you an exhaustive list. He's just kind of cluing you into 3 significant things that you could cause harm. And here I usually point out, when it refers to sexual misconduct, that when we get to chapter 7, which is 2 weeks from now, you're going to learn the 5 precepts where the Buddha details what sexual misconduct is. And it's important to understand that same-gender relationships isn't sexual misconduct. Sometimes people think that to be true based on what they might have heard other places. But when you look at what the Buddha taught around sexual misconduct, he talked about things like having sex with minors, or having sex without consent, or having sex outside of a relationship that you're currently committed to. Because in these situations, you're experiencing harm. Because you're putting out harm, this harm is going to come back to you. This is why if you had sex with lots and lots and lots and lots of people, you can potentially get sexually transmitted diseases. This is the unwholesome results of your decisions. And some of these diseases are actually fatal, right? So this sexual misconduct, it's not about if you're with a male and a male, or a female and a female, because if you're in a loyal, loving, consenting relationship, there's no harm. If it's a male and a female, or if it's a male and a male, or a female and a female, it's completely normal. There's never been a time in history when every single man had sex with a woman, or every single woman had sex with a male. Because of the universal truth of impermanence, it's not possible for every man to be interested in having sex with a female, or every female to be interested in having sex with a male. That would be permanence if that was the case. But we understand the universal truth of impermanence, that people are going to make different choices and different decisions. But what the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago is harmful decisions. This is how wise he was, that 2,500 years ago, he understood that same-gender relationships doesn't cause harm. Nowadays, we have people that don't even know that today, right? So this is how wise that he really truly was 2,500 years ago. So we're going to talk about that more when we get to chapter 7, okay? And I just like to point that out when we're talking about this. There's also other actions and other bodily actions that you'll learn about, like substances that cause heedlessness and gambling. All these things are based in craving, desire, attachment. So you're going to need to learn more about right action. But essentially, it's about not causing harm through your bodily actions. Then there's something called livelihood. Livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life. The way that you choose to sustain your life, if you're causing harm to others, this harm is going to come back to you. So the Buddha gives various guidance about certain livelihoods that would cause harm, like business and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons. And you can take each one of these and you can see how if you did them, it would cause harm to others, and harm would come back to you. Like, for example, substances that cause heedlessness. If I stood on the street corner and sold crystal methamphetamine or cocaine into the community, I'm causing harm to the community. People are having to go out and steal and maybe do sexual work in order to give me money. People are getting addicted to the substance. People are making all kinds of unwise decisions when they're on substances. And now, because I'm putting out that harm is going to come back to me. This is why standing on the street corner, I can get robbed, I can get beat up, I can get murdered. The police might come and arrest me. I might get addicted to these substances that I'm selling myself. These are all kinds of harms that I'm going to be experiencing. But remember, this is the natural law of karma. It's not a human law. Human law, in most places, it's illegal to sell illicit drugs on the street corner, right? But this is all substances that cause heedlessness. So if I was in a liquor store, my government might say, yeah, you can sell alcohol. You can go be a cashier. You can go mop the floors at a liquor store. We're not going to arrest you for that. But if you understand the natural law of karma, you might realize it's unwise to do that, because these are the places that typically get robbed. And when people go to rob those places, you might get beat up, you might get murdered. At the very least, you're going to be spending time with clientele that are intoxicated, right? Say you were a bartender, right? It's going to be pretty hectic in that place, trying to serve alcohol to people and constantly getting drunk people coming up to you and all different kinds of difficulties. So this is the natural law of karma, showing you this cause and effect. So the Buddha is providing you these 5 livelihoods, and you can independently verify them for yourself. But then he teaches how you perform your livelihood in terms of scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. Scheming is like corruption. So say I was a politician. It's not one of those 5 livelihoods. I'm not causing harm by being a politician, but if I was corrupt, or say I was a police officer, I'm not causing harm by just being a police officer, enforcing laws, but if I was corrupt, I could get into a lot of difficulties, and I'm not going to be able to sustain my life, because 15, 20 years into my career, people find out about my corruption, and now I'm out of a job. I don't have money to be able to sustain my life. What flattery is where you're making insincere comments to your customers, your business partners, your coworkers, just to get people to do the things you want them to do. Whereas if you've ever been to a business and as soon as you walk in, they're like, oh, you're so beautiful, you're so handsome. They're just trying to flatter you in order to get you to buy something. You're probably like, I don't want to go in the store. I'm not interested, right? Because people are going to be turned away from those insincere comments just to kind of get you to buy things. So if you were doing that in your livelihood, you're going to find that it's going to be challenging. Or if you were hinting, what this is not being clear and direct and concise in your work. So you would like to ensure that you're doing that in the work environment. And then belittling is if you were degrading or disparaging your coworkers, your business partners, or like your competition. Your customers are going to not appreciate that. So now when you're degrading and disparaging your competition, people are going to choose to not buy things from you, and you're going to have difficulties in your livelihood because of belittling your business partners, your coworkers, your competition. And then pursuing gain with gain, this is like just taking a job for the sake of the money. You don't really care about the product. You don't care about the service. You're just collecting a paycheck, essentially. You're going to feel very unmotivated and unenthused in this job. You're going to drag yourself to work every day, and you're probably going to despise the work that you do. What the Buddha is teaching you and guiding you to do is get to a point where you're very enthused and you have motivation and encouragement in your livelihood. By the time you purify your livelihood, it won't even feel like work anymore. Work is a 4-letter word for some of us, right? It's like, oh my goodness, I got to go to work, right? But you can enjoy your work, and it doesn't even feel like work. You can be enthused and enjoy it, right? By the time you get to a purified livelihood, whatever you're doing as a job, you would probably do that even if you didn't get paid for it. Like, of course, you need payment. You need to buy food and clothing and water and these kinds of things, but you can select a certain livelihood and do a particular livelihood that you just thoroughly enjoy. You wake up in the morning, you have a pep in your step, and you're interested in going to do this activity because you thoroughly enjoy it. And this is what the Buddha is guiding you to be able to do. And there's other teachings beyond this. This is just what we call the first fold of purification around your livelihood. But there's additional teachings beyond this that you'll find throughout the book series that I share. Okay, so this is your livelihood. So just summarizing this a bit, what right speech is during the lifetime of the Buddha, they refer to it as right speech, but we might refer to this as right communication. Because we communicate in many different ways. It's not just speech anymore. We have social media, we have text messages, emails, all different kinds of ways that we communicate. You would like all your communication to be using those 5 factors of well-spoken speech, because you could go to a job interview and you could knock it out of the park and do really well with your speech. But if that employer gets onto your social media and they see you're being bitter and harsh and hostile, you might not get the job. Right? So you would like all your communication to be using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. If you're sitting down at your computer and pounding out an email because you're trying to give somebody a piece of your mind, that's not the proper time to be communicating. You would like to ensure that when you communicate, that you're communicating using those 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Speaking at the right time, what you say is true, it's beneficial, it's gentle, and it's with the mind of loving kindness. And this will produce the best relationships in your life, and you'll produce wholesome results. Then with right action, this is ensuring you're not causing harm through your bodily actions. And there's many different actions that you could potentially cause harm. So you'd like to ensure that you're not causing harm through the way that you move about the world with your bodily actions, because any harm you put out is just going to come back to you. And then right livelihood is all about how you choose to sustain your life, that you would like to sustain your life by not causing harm to other beings. And the Buddha gives you guidance on this, but the choices that you make, it's up to you. He's not forcing you or controlling you. If you would like to get to this peaceful mental state that he experienced, this is the way to actually do it. He's explaining to you how to accomplish that. So any questions on the moral conduct section? Yep.
Refraining, so something. And then to one of those stuff, it said, refrain killing. So refrain killing any being, right? So as you mentioned, so there are a lot of human law. So there are a lot of industry to kill so the meat, animal meat, and it sell people, and then so we end up eating them. It's a good result or harsh result, so I can't judge. But today what we learned is refraining killing any being. Is that right?
So we're going to talk in 2 weeks about the 5 precepts, where we're going to dive into this killing a lot deeper, because it's not black and white. Right? There's certain situations where, like, say your house was infested by termites. You might potentially need to hire somebody to come and, eliminate this. And this is where you need to be able to see this gray area. But it's all about intention. It's about living compassionately for the welfare of all living beings and making sure you don't have the intention to kill. Because if you have the intention to kill, there's a certain anger or hatred there potentially. So this teaching about ensuring that you're practicing right action is ensuring that you're not intentionally causing harm to other beings. But there's a whole gray area that you need to navigate, and this is the 5 precepts that I'm going to help you understand this more in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, so what I did at the beginning of this group learning program is I went through the Eightfold Path in 3 individual classes, and I went into detail in each individual section. And there's other classes where I do go into this in a lot of detail, but today's class, I'm just kind of giving an overview of this. Okay, so here, after you learn the moral conduct, you need to learn the mental discipline section, which is right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This is where you're learning how to train your mind. And here, the words of the Buddha, he's giving you 4 different aspects of right effort. And what I do on this next slide is I summarize it for you. And oftentimes when I'm going through this very thoroughly, I will read this for you. I will make sure that you understand it. And then I help you to understand it through this here. What the Buddha is teaching as part of right effort is that you need to apply the effort to eliminate certain unwholesome qualities and cultivate certain wholesome qualities. So there's certain unwholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind right now. An example of that might be killing a human being. You have no interest in killing a human being. It's the farthest thing from your mind right now. And the Buddha is saying, take the effort to prevent those types of things from ever coming into your mind. And this is just an example. There's other unwholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind right now. And you're going to need to apply the effort to prevent those from ever coming into the mind. The second aspect of right effort is any unwholesome qualities that are currently in your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate those out of the mind. And this is some examples like craving for sexual contact outside of an existing relationship. So say you're in a current relationship and you know, and you see somebody and you're like, oh, wow, I'd like to get with him or I'd like to get with her. And you know it's going to cause harm in your relationship. And it's going to cause harm by doing that. So if you notice that your mind's having that unwholesome quality, you would like to cut that off. You'd like to apply the effort to eliminate that and get it out of the mind. Or say you have anger and frustration and agitation that's arising. You would like to apply the effort to eliminate that because it's an unwholesome quality. But then the third one is there's certain wholesome qualities that you're going to learn about on this path, like loving kindness or generosity or compassion. These are all wholesome qualities. And maybe those qualities aren't in your mind right now. Maybe you find it kind of hard to share with other people. Well, when you learn about generosity, you're going to understand that it's going to help you to train your mind to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. So if you just hold on to things being selfish, you wouldn't actually be able to get to enlightenment. So if it's my money, my car, my phone, my food, my clothes, and you're holding on to things really tightly, your mind's not eliminating craving, desire, attachment. So we practice generosity to train your mind to let go. So if you know that your mind doesn't have this quality, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that into the mind. And there's other wholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind that you're going to learn about on the path to enlightenment that you're going to need to apply the effort to bring into your mind. And then the fourth aspect is that there's certain wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind that you would like to support and encourage. Don't allow them to fade. Bring them to full growth and full perfection. So for example, you probably have loving kindness in your mind. You probably have a genuine interest in seeing other beings be well. But in some situations, you have anger and bitterness and hostility. That's because you have this quality of loving kindness in your mind, but it hasn't been brought to full growth and full perfection and full development. In some situations, you're still angry and hostile and bitter towards people. So you're going to need to apply the effort to be loving and kind in all situations to fully extinguish this anger and hatred that's in the mind. So that's what the fourth aspect of right effort is applying the effort to eliminate or to cultivate the wholesome qualities that you cultivate and bring to full growth and full perfection, any wholesome qualities. So these are the four aspects of right effort. The way I teach this to my young son is to eliminate the unwholesome or kick that stuff out and bring in the wholesome, right? So this is what right effort is. You need to apply the effort. These wholesome qualities aren't going to just pop up in your mind and poof. These unwholesome qualities aren't going to just disappear on their own. You're going to need to apply effort. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you here. The seventh step is called right mindfulness. And usually, again, I read this to students and help them to understand it. It's in the books. You can get access to all these books for free. You can download them from our website. You can take them and go print them. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order them on Amazon if you'd like. So this right mindfulness, the Buddha is explaining what's called the four foundations of mindfulness. But generally, when you first start on the path to enlightenment, you might think about mindfulness as awareness of mind. This is a great way to think about mindfulness when you're first getting started. Because in the unenlightened state, we don't really usually have awareness of our mind. We're just pursuing our own selfish desires. We're kind of plowing through the forest, knocking down the trees, burning up the forest. We kind of smell smoke and we're like, who lit the fire? You know, we kind of look behind us. We see all these trees knocked down. We're like, who knocked down all the trees and who lit the fire? Well, it's you that did that, right? That's what's happening in your life is you knocked down the trees and you started burning up the forest, but you just didn't realize it because you weren't practicing mindfulness or awareness of mind. So you might just start with some mindfulness of thinking about it as awareness of mind. So this word mindfulness has made its way into kind of modern culture and modern language. You'll hear people using the word mindfulness quite a bit. But oftentimes what I hear people do is they're using this word mindfulness in replace of careful. So someone might say, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to the table? What they're really saying is, can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table. So maybe they're using the word in that way, and that's fine. That's their choice. If you would like to get to enlightenment, you're going to need to understand these teachings in the way that the Buddha taught them, which mindfulness means awareness of your mind, of what's going on in your own mind. Because if you're going to purify your mind, you're going to need to have awareness of what's going on in your mind. What are the wholesome qualities and what are the unwholesome qualities? You wouldn't ever be able to apply right effort if you didn't have right mindfulness. So this is one of the things that you're cultivating on the path to enlightenment, is awareness of your mind. But more specifically, you would like to practice the 4 foundations of mindfulness. What this is where you develop awareness of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. Why this is so important is because this is the Buddha explaining to you the life cycle that discontentedness is going to take as you're experiencing certain contact. When you're experiencing contact through the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind itself, if you have a craving in your mind and you're longing, yearning, you're going to see that contact as either agreeable or disagreeable. And now, based on that contact, if you're going to get pleasant feelings, pleasant conditioned feelings, there's going to be bodily sensations. They're going to be tingling across the shoulders, across the back of the neck, up the head. You're going to notice this bodily sensation. It's an early warning system alerting you that you're about to have a conditioned feeling. If you've ever gotten angry before, prior to your anger or your frustration, there's these bodily sensations like tightening in the chest, heat in the face, maybe tightening in the throat, maybe pressure in the skull. If you're not aware of these now, you're going to ultimately need to get aware of these bodily sensations that are occurring prior to any discontent feelings, because this is the early warning system. It's alerting you, hey, you're about to get a conditioned feeling. And what the Buddha teaches you to do is apply right effort to cut that off and let it go. You're not suppressing your feelings. You're cutting it off before it ever becomes a feeling. You're rewiring the mind. So when you have contact, when you see something, hear something, smell something, when you taste something, when there's some contact with the body or there's some thought in your mind's like, oh my goodness, I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. There's these bodily sensations. And at that point, you can say, nope, I'm not going to let you do that. I'm not going to let you get a conditioned feeling, because if you keep allowing the mind to get a conditioned feeling, it's going to keep doing that over and over and over again. It's like, wow, it's sunny outside. I'm going to get excited. Yay, I'm so excited. Or wow, look at that bank account balance. I'm so excited. Yay, I'm so excited about that bank account balance. But what the Buddha is teaching you to do is that when you see these bodily sensations is to cut it off and let it go, so that you can rewire the mind. You can train the mind to not form its inner feelings based on some condition. Because if you keep allowing the mind to do that, it's going to keep experiencing these conditioned feelings. So you can cut it off and let it go as a bodily sensation. But you're going to need to clue into this closer and closer as you develop your mind. Because if you miss it as a bodily sensation, it's going to become a feeling. Now the mind's angry. Now it's frustrated. Now you got a real problem to deal with. You got to get it out of your mind, because now it's affecting the mind. And this is where you become unskillful with your intentions, your speech, your actions. You become bitter and harsh and hostile to people because now the mind's angry. Now it's frustrated. And you might start lashing out on other people with unskillful conduct. And now you're damaging your relationships. So if you can cut it off as a bodily sensation, that would be ideal. You've just saved your mind all the trouble of having to get angry and frustrated. It's kind of like if you were taking a boat from the UK to Canada, you would like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat, because once you're out in the middle of the ocean and the water starts coming into the boat, you got a real problem to deal with. You got to get this water out. So the same thing is true is once you allow the mind to have a conditioned feeling, you got to get it out. You got to train your mind. So you will experience conditioned feelings. Between now and the time you get to enlightenment, you're going to experience these conditioned feelings. But more and more, you would like to rewire the mind and train it to not do that. And it's cluing into those bodily sensations that's going to allow you to do that, that you can see it sooner and sooner and sooner, that your mind's about to get a conditioned feeling and you can cut it off and let it go. But if you miss it as a bodily sensation, it does become a feeling, you can cut it off and let it go there too. You can redirect the mind. So say you're watching the news and you start noticing the frustration. You start noticing the bodily sensation coming up. Well, rather than just sit there and dwell in that frustration, or the mind's about to get frustrated, redirect the mind. Turn off the TV, go outside for a walk, go for a bike ride, redirect the mind, train your mind to let that go. Because sitting there watching the news and dwelling in that, your mind's just going to get angry and frustrated. It's staying wired to have these conditioned feelings. So if you can be alerted to this ahead of time, you can cut it off and let it go. That's what the Buddha is teaching you here. Because if you miss it as a bodily sensation, you miss it as a feeling, it's going to start affecting the condition of your mind. Have you ever been angry and frustrated for like a few hours or a few days or a week or two? Of course you have, right? Everybody has at some point. You were agitated or annoyed for like a few days or a week or so. This is because you didn't understand the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and you didn't cut it off as a bodily sensation. You didn't cut it off as a feeling, and now it's affecting the condition of your mind more long term. And then it's forming what's called a mental object, which is a deeply rooted container that's in the mind. And in this example, it's ill will. That when we grew up, when we were born, we didn't have ill will in our mind. We didn't have the mental object of ill will when we were born. This is why as babies, we didn't go into the nursery at the hospital hating other babies. When we went into the nursery, it was like, goo goo gagu, yeah, give me food, let me sleep, let me poop, let me pee, right? This is what we do as children. But slowly but surely, as we aged, we had cravings, we had desires. Mommy, Daddy, I want chocolate. Give me ice cream. Give me chocolate. And we gave it to him, right? We got that as we were growing up. But at some point, Mom and Dad said, no, you can't have chocolate. You're the worst mom ever. You're the worst dad ever, right? We started blaming them for the painful feelings that we were experiencing. But in reality, it was our own craving. When we got what we wanted, we were happy. But when we didn't get what we wanted, we were sad and frustrated. And we blame something external. We blame mom and dad. They are the worst mom and dad ever because they didn't give us chocolate or ice cream. But it was our own craving that was producing this. So as we had these experiences, we started forming this mental object or conditioning of the mind, this deeply rooted container where now we have this ill will in the mind in the unenlightened state. And right now, you're not angry. You're not frustrated, I don't think. Perhaps you are, maybe you're not. But let's just say you're not irritated or annoyed right now. Well, there's this mental object of ill will that's in there, that it's only a matter of time before it gets triggered, and now your mind's angry and frustrated. So while you're blocking the discontent feelings, while you're training the mind to no longer form conditioned feelings, and you're working to cut that off and cut that off and cut that off, you're also working to break up the mental objects that are in the mind. And there's various tools and techniques that the Buddha shares. All the 10 fetters, the 10 pollutions, they're all mental objects. And you're going to need to know the symptoms that these produce so that then when you see them, you can take action to fix it. So this is what's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness, where you gradually learn to be aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and these mental objects. And you'll gradually learn this over time. Okay, so this is the right mindfulness. This is right concentration. What the Buddha is explaining here is he's explaining the results of practicing the Eightfold Path. This is the last step. That if you put together the Eightfold Path, your mind's going to move into this right concentration where you're experiencing what's called the jhanas. The jhanas are preliminary phases that the mind experiences before it gets to the first stage of enlightenment. There's 4 stages of enlightenment, and the mind's actually enlightened when you get to the 4th stage. But prior to the first stage of enlightenment, there's these 4 preliminary phases where your mind has absorbed a certain amount of teachings and you've absorbed a certain amount of meditation, and now you start experiencing heightened qualities of awareness. And the Buddha is explaining what these 4 jhanas are and what you're going to experience when your mind's moving into these jhanas. And this is where it gets really real for you, that if you are practicing his teachings and you start experiencing these qualities and you realize, oh my goodness, he explained this 2,500 years ago, and here I am, I practiced his teachings, and now I'm starting to experience these things. This is where you can see, oh my goodness, his teachings are very true, because you're starting to notice these exact qualities that he's actually talking about. One of the qualities that he talks about is what's called unification of the mind, or oneness of the mind, where you no longer have a subconscious mind and a conscious mind. Your conscious mind is polluted, but your subconscious mind is even more polluted. So if you've ever been around in a conversation and you just blurted something out and you were like, why did I say that? I don't think that way. That's not the way that I typically talk, and you just blurted it out and you realized how unwise it was, that was your subconscious mind that's very polluted throwing something up into your conscious mind, and you just blurted it out without thinking about it. So by the time you get to the second jhana, for example, you now have oneness of mind or unification of the mind, where you can now observe the entire mind. Because if there's a conscious mind that you're aware of and a subconscious mind that you're not aware of, you won't be able to purify your entire mind. So by the time you get to the second jhana and having trained your mind to a certain degree, you can now observe the entire mind. There's not a conscious and subconscious mind anymore. But there's other qualities that he talks about here as well. In other teachings, he talks about how to practice right concentration. So that's what I focus on here, is how to actually practice it. Practicing right concentration is to have a well-developed meditation practice and to practice singleness of mind. So that's why we start our classes with meditation. You're training in breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. And you'd like to gradually build this up to 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more. And it sometimes takes 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to this kind of frequency. But gradually, as you do, you will see the improvement to the condition of your mind. The breathing mindfulness meditation that we did this morning, this is training your mind to let go, let go, let go. Because with craving, desire, attachment, you're going to hold on very tightly. It's also helping you to develop mindfulness or awareness of mind and concentration as well. So that breathing mindfulness meditation is helping you to develop the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And then loving kindness meditation is helping you to eliminate anger, hatred, and ill will, and all the lesser versions like frustration, agitation, annoyance, and so forth. And then you'd like to practice singleness of mind, where you're just doing one thing at a time, where what you might have been taught is multitasking, where your mind can't actually do more than one thing at a time. If you're eating a sandwich, you're talking on the phone, and you're watching TV, you're not actually doing all 3 of those things at one time. You're doing the talking on the phone for a few seconds, you're watching the TV for a few seconds, and you're eating a sandwich for a few seconds. Your mind's rapidly cycling from thing to thing to thing to thing. It's bouncing around. And then when you get home, you might find it hard to relax. You might find that you're stressed or you have anxiety. And this is because for 6 hours or 8 hours a day, you're bouncing around from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. You're not consciously making decisions, practicing singleness of mind. So what you would like to do is, if you're washing dishes, just wash dishes. If your mind's wandering and roaming, you apply right effort to cut that off and let it go and bring the mind back. This is where your mindfulness and right effort comes in. To practice singleness of mind, you need mindfulness and right effort. If you're in a business meeting and you notice your mind's wandering, you cut that off and bring the mind back, rather than try to allow the mind to keep roaming and wandering like this. The way that you experience the results here is it's kind of like a piece of wood and a steel rod, that if you grind this back and forth, when you first start, the steel rod's going to bounce around a whole lot because there's no groove yet. So when you first start training your mind this way, your mind's going to probably be bouncing around to a certain degree. But when you practice singleness of mind more and more, when you notice that your mind's wandering, you cut it off and bring it back, you're going to be grinding this steel rod back and forth in this wood, and it gets a deeper and deeper and deeper groove. And when it pops out, you'll know it, and you'll be able to bring it back. But eventually you get this groove so deep that the steel rod never pops out. And it's the same thing with your mind, that if you practice singleness of mind very closely for an extended period of time, you'll notice you have focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory, because you're training it not just in meditation to focus on the breath, but in daily life, you're training it too. So at any time you see the mind roam and wander, you cut it off and bring the mind back to the breath. And this would be practicing singleness of mind. So this is the mental discipline section of the Eightfold Path, where you're applying right effort to take the initiative and having the willingness to cut off and let go of any unwholesome qualities in the mind, but to also apply right effort to cultivate the wholesome qualities. Right mindfulness is having awareness of the mind, and more specifically, practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And then right concentration is practicing breathing mindfulness meditation, loving kindness meditation, and practicing singleness of mind in daily life. This is the Eightfold Path. And you would need to know this Eightfold Path inside and out, backwards and forward, like the back of your hand. So typically students are learning this more than one time with me through books and audiobooks and videos and these classes to be able to walk through and slowly learn each one of these and then slowly dial it in and tweak it in your life more and more and more. And this is what's going to produce the benefits. Do you guys have any questions on the Eightfold Path, either here or online? Okay. So I know today's class is a little bit longer than normal. We're a little bit past 11 o'clock, but this Eightfold Path, you're going to need it to know it very closely, right? All of our classes aren't the same exact amount of time because of impermanence. Sometimes they go a little bit longer, sometimes they're a little bit shorter. So if you haven't learned this Eightfold Path in detail yet, you can look at the recordings on our YouTube channel, on our podcast. You can read it in the book. You're going to need to go through it. And then as you need help, you just let me know, because you're on your own independent journey to get to enlightenment. And these various classes are going to be here to help you, but you're going to need to dive into it and really investigate it. And then ask questions as you need help. Just let me know. Next week in our class here on Sunday, we're going to be in chapter 6, which is a really short chapter. It's titled The Middle Way, Walking the Middle Way. It'll probably take me all of about 30 minutes to teach it to you, and you guys might have some questions about it. But of course, we're going to do meditation, and then I'll teach it to you, and then open up to anything that you guys would like to ask me about. So you guys can attend that either here or online at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. 9 p.m. I do it from home, so there's not a live audience, but you can attend here at 9 a.m. or you can attend online either 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. depending on what time zone you're in. That might be a different time. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to be teaching a class where I'm just going to be meditating with you guys and then opening up to any and all questions that you guys have. That's what I typically do on Wednesdays. So thank you all for joining for today's class. If you'd like to learn more, there's books and videos and audiobooks and all these different things available to you at no cost. Even personal guidance is available at no cost. You can access everything from our website, or you can come talk to me and I'll get you moving in the right direction to be able to access these resources. So have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day, and perhaps we'll see you next time. Sawadee Khap.
An announcement. I'm going to be cleaning inside the hall and the bathroom.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.